Today I'm going to show you the 5 best ways of making money online, and most importantly, how to pick the one that's best for you. There is a method that works for everybody, even if you feel like you've got no skills or experience. I've seen people become millionaires in their first year by doing some of these, but I've also seen people fail just because they picked the wrong method for them. As long as you start with the correct method, you can then use the money you made from it to learn the other methods, and over time make more and more money. So let's start with the first method, which is very simple. It's online services and freelancing. Now, before you skip this one, just bear with me for a second. When I talk about this method, people usually have one of 2 concerns. Number 1, I don't have any skills. And number 2, I don't have any clients. Well, if that's you, don't worry. I'm going to show you how everybody has a skill that they can sell right now and how to get clients quickly, even if you've not got a network. But first, who is this method for? Well, this method is great for beginners because you don't really need much to get started, and it will teach you lots of basic business skills as you go. It's also great for people with full-time jobs or at university, as it's very flexible and can take as much or as little time as you want. And finally, it's obviously great for people with specialist skills like designers and writers. But as I said, you don't need one of these skills to make it work. Okay, so who's this not good for? Well, if you've got a big online audience already, there are better options for you in this list. Equally, if you're very experienced in a specialized field, there's also a better option for you, and we're going to talk about that next. Right. Now for the pros and cons. Obviously, the biggest and most obvious pro is its flexibility. You can do this while studying or working and build up an extra income stream on the side. But the main issue with this is you're still swapping time for money, which means your income is limited by the amount of time you can commit to this. However, if you want to, you could use the money you make from this to transition to one of the harder but more passive methods later in this list. Okay, now I know I've still not explained how to do this if you're not a specialist or how to get clients, so let's do that now. Did you know that you can freelance as a personal assistant? It's called a virtual assistant or VA. There's also translation and social media management jobs. You can even be paid just to input data that's in a document into an online system. Go onto Fiverr or Upwork and look at the available job categories. You'll be amazed how many jobs are available there that don't require much, if any, experience. This is also how you can get your first clients. Look for jobs listed there that you think you'd be good at and drop the poster a message explaining why you think you'd be a good fit. It will take some time, but you'll learn a lot along the way, and you'll build up a great second income stream. So that's services and freelancing. Now let's talk about the second method. Remember when I said there's an even better way to make money online if you're already a specialist? Well, this is it. The good news is you don't need to be a specialist for this to work. It can work for almost anyone. But first, let me explain what the method is. This method is all about creating educational content that you sell online. More specifically, online video courses and guides. So who is this for? Well, as I said, it's great for specialists like developers who want to share their skills, and it's also great for people who already share their story online via social media, or for people who have done tutoring or education in the past and are confident teaching people. So who is it not for? Well, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend this if you want to make money immediately, which I'll explain in a second. I also wouldn't recommend doing this as your first and only business, as it's one of the more complicated ones we're going to talk about today. And moving on to the pros and cons, the biggest benefit of this method is you get compounding returns. You can make the educational content once and then keep selling it, almost forever in some cases. But the downside of that is it is one of the slower methods to get going, as you need to make the product before you can make any sales. You'll also need to know how to market your product effectively, which is why this is a bit harder for beginners. But the good news is there are some great new AI tools that can help you to drive traffic through ads or even create the content for you. If you'd like me to make a video talking you through some of these tools, do let me know in the comments below. But what do you do if you have the time and you have the motivation, but you don't feel like a specialist? Well, the truth is that people need support and guidance in almost any topic you can think of. If you're in school, you could build a study tips guide. And if you're at university, you could make a budgeting guide. Whatever your current life experience, I guarantee it will be useful to someone just behind you in life right now. Think about what you've learned recently that you wish you'd known sooner. That can be your product. Now, if you like the idea of teaching people but don't have the time to make a full guide, this next method could be a great alternative. The best thing about this method is you can also use it to grow an online audience with hardly any extra work. But more on that in a minute. So what is it? This method is consulting and coaching. You can charge people either as a one-off or regularly to teach them one-to-one in something you're good at. This could be a language, a school subject, or any skill that you're good at. So who is it for? Well, it's great if you want to help people and enjoy speaking to people regularly. And as I mentioned, it's great if you want to make money while building an audience online. And if you're thinking about making a course or guide but aren't quite ready for that yet, then this is a great stepping stone. So who is it not for? Well, pretty obviously this wouldn't be a good method if you don't want to speak to people much. And it could be tricky if you have a very fixed schedule, as it can be hard to work around that. So now let's talk about the pros and cons. Firstly, you can make great money doing this. Some people charge upwards of $500 an hour for their time, but you are, like in the services method, still swapping time for money. Therefore, I'd mostly recommend this method as an entry point to one of the other methods that scale more effectively long term, like making a course or scaling your social media following. So how do you actually grow your following with this method? Well, it's really easy. Record every single one-to-one session that you do. Then make a note of whenever you had a point that you think would be useful to other people. Then cut those up and post them to TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram. This is a massive hack, as you're basically getting paid to make short-form content and grow your audience. Okay, so moving on to our fourth method. This one might sound a bit more complicated, and I'm not gonna lie, it is. But it's not as complicated as it sounds, and you don't need to be super technical to get started with this. This method also has the potential to make the most money of anything in this video. Let me explain. This method is micro SaaS. You build a simple software product or tool, and then you sell it online, usually for a monthly subscription. They also don't need to be super complicated. One of my favourite examples is Nomad List, which collects user-generated information on remote working locations. So who's this good for? Well, obviously, if you have a tech background, this is a natural fit. But I think more generally, if you're good at identifying a need and marketing your product, there are ways to do this even if you're not technical. So who's it not for? Well, firstly, this isn't going to be the fastest earner short term. You're going to need to think of an idea, build it, and market it before you make any sales. This probably means you need to have another source of income before you start this one. So if that's not you, this might be one to come back to. Now, when we look at the pros, you can build a huge subscription business with this method. It's basically infinitely scalable and can appeal to a large market, which is why it's got the highest earning potential. But as I said, it does take a while to generate that income and it is higher risk. Therefore, I'd only suggest starting this if you've got a bit of experience in business already, or you've got another source of income while you build out this method. So how can you get involved in these if you're not technical? Well, I'd have a look at no-code tools. There's loads of these nowadays and they allow you to build simple software products without writing a single line of code. There's now even a platform that makes you a whole app using AI called Builder AI. And if you want to know a bit more about those options, let me know in the comments below. So now we've talked about probably the hardest method, let's talk about our fifth and final method. In contrast, this method is probably the easiest in the list, and is a brilliant first method, particularly if the other methods feel daunting because you haven't got much experience yet. So what is it? This is selling digital products or downloadables online. So it's similar to selling a PDF or a guide, but more focused on creative offerings. You can make downloadable textures, printables, stock photos, you name it. And you can then sell them via sites like Etsy, Gumroad, and Adobe Stock. So who's it for? Well, this option is great for creative people, as you can monetize your graphics, photography, or illustration skills. But this can still work even if you're not creative, and I'll explain that in a minute. It's also great for beginners as there's next to no cost to get started, and you'll learn valuable skills like marketing, setting up business accounts, and creating products. So who's it not for? Well, this usually isn't the highest earning of the methods on this list. As it's so easy to start, there is more competition. So if you're confident in one of the other methods, they may be better. But in terms of the pros and cons, it is very scalable. If you find a good niche, it is possible to make a lot of money here. And as I said, it's great for teaching basic business skills. So how can you get started with this method even if you're not creative? Well, you can actually use a generative AI tool called Midjourney to create these products for you. And if you want to learn how to do that, you can check out my step-by-step guide by clicking somewhere around here. Or if you want to learn more about making money online, you can subscribe to my newsletter, the Digital Makers Club, where I share practical tips on building online businesses every single week. The link's in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was useful. Have a great day.